Hi there, my name is Sarah Duffy and I have a kind of quick video on how to cut bias binding. I use bias binding all the time and there's lots of ways to use it. And so I'm going to just go over quickly how to cut it yourself so you don't have to buy prepackaged, or maybe you can't find what you're looking for and you want to make your own. So I always use a rotary knife and a see-through ruler. This is 2 by 18 inches. And always put in a new blade. It's good for you and it's much faster and easier. So I'm going to start with a fat quarter. Fat quarter is a 1/2 yard that's been cut off of the bolt and then once more cut in half on the cross grain right here. So this is a fat quarter. Basically it's a 1/4 yard side by side rather than it being long and skinny. And the next thing I do, now, if you're kind of a beginner at this and you can't tell the grain line of your fabric, like this is really easy because of the print, I suggest skipping this part until you get really comfortable with it. But the next thing I do is I always cut off the selvage, because otherwise it's just going to get in my way later on how to, like when I put it together and everything. So I'll just be cutting it on every single end. So the next thing I do is, it doesn't matter which way you start, we can start this way if you like, but I'm just going to keep the fabric just like this. I fold it to the edge here, and then I'm going to turn it and fold it along this fold right here. Now, you don't really have to do too many folds because it's so small already. And now you have this ready to cut into strips, just like this. And you're going to start with a right angle to your fold. Now sometimes I just start right here in the middle like this. And I'm making sure my ruler is lined up on one of these cross lines along the fold here. We can put it right here on this grid mat, but I don't usually use a grid mat when I cut bias binding. This just happens to be here on my pattern table here. So I'm going to cut a piece off first, and then to make it a little easier and less, I'm just going to stack these up just like this. I have to rotate it because I'm right-handed. And now I'm going to cut it the width that I want, and I'm going to cut it 1 3/8 inch wide. And that usually finishes roughly 3/8 inch wide binding when it's double fold and sewn and complete. So I'm going to line up my cut edge here. These guys are kind of moving there. Line up this cut edge to my ruler at 1 3/8. And then I have my first bit of binding. I'm going to continue to do that through the whole thing. Make sure that you don't jump your ruler with your blade. It's really dangerous. Just like that. It's kind of thick, that's why I'm having to push it a little bit. I'm going to get as many as I can. And I did pretty good, you can tell, because this is a pretty parallel piece, but I'm throwing that away. I don't need it. All right, so that's how you cut up a fat quarter, because sometimes you only need a little bit of binding and you can actually get quite a bit. I'm going to show you how to sew this together in another video. All right, so my next one is when I want to cut a lot, I cut off a piece that is as long as is wide. So this fabric is roughly 44 inches wide, selvage to selvage, and so I cut a piece off that's the same length as that width, about 45 inches wide. So a little over a yard, about 1.25 yards. And then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cut off my selvage just like on the other one. I do this because it just saves me labor later, because I'm going to sew all of my binding together in one long strip. It seems tedious to do that, but it just saves me time later on, and then I really look forward to using it, you know? All right, so we've cut off our selvage. Really easy to tell which my grain line is, so I'm not gonna get lost here. So the reason I do the 45 inches, I'll show you, is that now I have a square. So I can fold this corner to corner. You do not have to do it this size. I just find this to be the most efficient way to get what I need. So we have our, and it wasn't quite a square. And you know, can you see that there's a little bit of difference here? That is not a big deal. I mean, yes, the true bias would be to line up this edge like this. But anything on the 45-degree angle is going to be stretchy and considered bias. This is kind of fighting me a little bit. Here we go. The bias is the diagonal grain line, 45 degrees to the length grain or the cross grain, and it on a woven makes it stretchy. So now we have our triangle here, and now we just keep folding it on this fold right here. Just stack these folds right up. And I do this about probably till it's about 12 inches wide. Mainly because it's a manageable amount to handle. And I kind of layer it back and forth like this. You can roll it up if you like. All right, and so just like last time, I could cut this piece off and layer it on here. Since my blade is nice and sharp, I'm gonna do that. So let's see, I'm gonna line up my fold on that grid. But if you don't have a grid, just make sure you have a right angle to this fold right here on your first cut. You can put it wherever you like. I kind of do it in the this thinner area here. I try and keep this all together, and then I just flip it over. Just like that. And now I'm ready. Now you don't have to keep the really tiny pieces that you cut, you know, the little triangles. But I'll tell you, sometimes they do come in handy. The smaller the piece of binding, the more seams you're gonna have. And so there you go. You got all your binding ready to go. Just keep cutting it. If this kind of starts bugging you, you can straighten it out like that. There we go. You just continue on till all of your binding is cut. That's how you cut bias binding in any fabric that you like. And if you're at the fabric store and you just need a little bit, you can pick up a fat quarter, and I showed you how to cut that right at the beginning. So good luck and have fun sewing all the bias binding, because I love using it myself. And stay tuned for a video on how to sew it yourself. Thanks.